We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Monday, talking politics, as we will be up through the presidential election. Professor Schwartz is with us from over at Vanderbilt. In fact, this whole campaign, I'm sure, is a topic of conversation in some of your classes, right?
It is. It is. It's a constant subject. Students are fascinated by it.
Great teaching tool for you to look at how it's shaking out. The number, if you want to jump in, 737-7587. You know, I was wondering about this. We saw that Trump gets another endorsement from one of his rivals, Ben Carson, comes out. So now he's got Christie and Carson. You have to wonder with some of the ugliness. It does bother me. I almost look at them as hypocrites, the way they attack each other and then say, well, if he gets the nomination, I'll support him. You know, if someone attacks me, whatever the party, I'm sorry. I'm not sure I'm going to get behind him like that. But with Carson, he says, there's two sides of Donald Trump, which I suspect maybe this very public persona of him that's tapping into the anger that people like. I wonder and hope that maybe behind closed doors he's not quite so bombastic. What do you think?
I think it's probably obvious that politicians, one of their features is having a sort of acting or theatrical role that they play. Most politicians have chosen to play that role, though, behind the scenes. I mean, they're often very different people. Lyndon Johnson's a great example. When he was in public, he was very formal, he was very stiff, and his speaking style tended toward boredom. Behind the scenes, he was incredibly lively, vulgar at times, character in his storytelling and all the rest. And I think the thing about Trump is that the bombastic and vulgar side is in front in public, and there may be a private side that's not quite that way, but we don't see.
Gosh, that's interesting. I bet you're right about that. Let's go to Greg. Greg, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Hey, Greg, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, this is just kind of an amazing thing to watch. Just for the fact that, let's look at Donald Trump 6-8 months ago. Let's look at the coverage of Donald Trump 6-8 months ago. It was primarily all positive. Everything was I'd say 90% everything you saw about and heard about on television and radio, every aspect of the media was positive. Then all of a sudden, we get Jeb Bush out of the race, and we have a Republican Party saying, well, guess what? We do not want Donald Trump as our nominee. We don't want this. And then the media just turns on a dime. It's like the coverage before, Donald Trump has never changed. Donald Trump is exactly the same now as he was before. The only thing that's changed now is the media coverage of him. Now, I'm sorry, but I've never ever remembered rallies to where people would protest so violently that they disrupt the whole thing. So I think this is all just typical out-of-control government that when they want to stop and slander a candidate and stop at nothing to stop them, they're going to hire whoever they want to come in there and disrupt these rallies. They're going to do whatever it takes to stop this guy. And I think that's what we're witnessing now, because the Republican Party is supposed to it's like the American people are supposed to nominate the person to run for president. The Republican Party is supposed to support that person. The Republican Party is not doing that. I mean, Mitt Romney comes out just to go ahead and attack Donald Trump.
Yeah, you know what? He's
the pattern.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Certainly a bunch of people have come after him. And, Trump himself said, boy, this last week I've had more critics come after me, from the Republican side. And it doesn't affect him. It doesn't. I think it almost emboldens those who support him, saying, to heck with you guys, the establishment. I'm sorry you don't like it, but we're voting for who we want to vote for.
Well, it's true, but I take issue with the caller. I think the initial coverage of Trump actually featured a lot of his negative comments. His initial opening with talking about Mexicans as rapists, to talking about John McCain not as a hero, and all of that. There's a lot of negative coverage of Trump. It just didn't have much impact. It is true, I think, that most Republican candidates did not take Trump seriously, so they did not attack him. Ted Cruz did not, was quite positive toward Trump.
They were having a bromance.
They did not take him seriously as a voter, and so they were looking at the others as the curator.
And that was part of the problem for them, in that they weren't taking him seriously. They didn't get a steam of, going after him early, and then it's too late. Now, I will say this too, is it not true? We know there was a large field of Republican candidates. Many of them have fallen aside. And as it stems down to the Democrats, and of course there's only two over there, but eventually, let's just say Donald Trump gets, as that pool shrinks, the media turns up the attention, and there's fewer to focus on, so you focus more in depth, and eventually, when it's just one in the Democrat and one in the Republican side, you're the sole focus. And we've seen it before with candidates when they get in there, and all of a sudden then that media spotlight is just on you. And the digging that will occur into your background, into anything you've said or done, probably going back to elementary school, is just, at that point, they're all on you, the world's media. If there's stuff or there's skeletons in the closet that may be damaging, it's going to come out. In this day and age, are you kidding me? You have no way of hiding it. So, yeah, it's gotten heated, Greg, because there's fewer candidates to focus on, and it's focused more on him. I agree with you. It was negative early on to some degree. But what do you think in terms of, I keep thinking about like Gary Hart and things like that.
Yeah.
When he finally got down and he looked like, and he said these things and he even challenged the media, and then that whole monkey business thing. And
No, I think the thing is that 17 candidates and the fact that most in the media also did not take Trump seriously outside of some entertainment value. Meant that there was not serious consideration of his viewpoints, of things he said in the past, of things he's done in the past. And now that he looks like the likely Republican presidential nominee, of course there's going to be a great deal more attention on him.
And I wonder what'll come out. And the thing is, I'm guessing someone like Donald Trump does have maybe some issues in the back with what he's done. And I don't think whatever comes up, short of them catching him in the act of committing murder, is going to hurt him. No. I just don't. If they come up with something about infidelities or who knows what, I don't think that would hurt him at all.
Partly because he's been very open in confessing those things in the first place.
Smart. I mean, get it out there now.
You know, it's all out there in his books that his behavior. So people have accepted him already. The thing that could be more interesting would be him explaining the differences in his point of view from liberal to conservative and back again. He has changed his viewpoints constantly throughout his life.
Let's go to Burton. Hi, Burton. Good morning, Burton.
How you doing?
Hey, good. What's on your mind?
Oh, yeah, listening to y'all talk about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I think to my opinion, I think Donald Trump's a joke.
Oh, yeah, so you're not going to vote for him?
No.
No. What is it that bothers you about him?
Oh, his followers, I ain't sure that he's paying them to act up.
Well, I don't know if that's actually true. He has so many of them. He doesn't need to pay anyone to kind of support him. His followers really believe, I suppose. But the violence, does that bother you at all at his rallies?
I just think he's up there. He's a joke. I don't think he'd be a good president.
Okay. You know, it's interesting. Hillary Clinton was saying, I think yesterday at one of her campaign stops, that she's actually hearing from some foreign leaders, who are calling her and saying, look, what can we do? Can we endorse you? Because they're so afraid of Donald Trump maybe coming into office.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I mean, Trump represents, at least to other leaders, we sometimes don't realize how much attention is paid to the American presidential election by leaders in other countries. We haven't, our political system, our economic system, our military strength affects many other countries.
Sure.
And so
the
fact that they would be affected by a leader like Trump does make them very interested in the outcome. And so that's going to be the case, I do think. And many of them are worried about many of Trump's statements, which are certainly at odds with what has been American foreign policy.
Yeah, when you've heard him talk a little bit about some foreign leaders, the only one you've heard him say some positive things
about is Putin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're like, Vladimir Putin is the one that you are advocating for, and we know about the history there. But yeah, it's interesting. I saw a breakdown of some of the headlines in Europe and some of these, Italy and Britain and France, and just raising questions about, and they're taking it very seriously now as well.
Well, they do. They've had experience with demagogues in the past. I mean, many countries have had this experience of a strongman leader, and so they're frightened by it.
And that may tap into some of Trump's support, who say, you know what? I'm glad that the Europeans are, because if you think for some reason we've been your patsy, we're not going to be anymore. I'm not saying that's the case, but some people feel that other countries have taken advantage of us to some degree somehow, and that Trump will put a stop to that.
That's right.
And if it's making them unsettled, good, in the minds of some.
And the one description of Trump that you can certainly say that fits is that he's a nationalist. I mean, he believes strongly in America first, and it's this power that's part of his campaign, making America great again, is a very nationalist and something that often scares countries that have had experiences with nationalism that has gone awry in the past.
Sure, and you keep hearing, we'll go to a break here in about a minute or so, but He hasn't backed off that wall thing with Mexico at all. And I'm just wondering what his end game is there. I know he keeps saying that, and he may still believe it. I simply don't believe if he were to win, there would be a way to really viably do that. I just don't see it happening.
Well,
and so I wonder how he'll backtrack when the time comes, but he's sticking to his guns on the wall.
Right. And I think, that's become sort of a absolute fixed position in the fact that Trump, of course, backs off on many other positions frequently. So that one probably is one he can't.
Yeah, and what I'm saying there is not that whether you believe that's a good idea or not, practically speaking, in terms of actually being able to do that, some of the environmental concerns, whether or not you're really going to be able to get Mexico to pave, all that kind of stuff, practically. I just want, and it may be when he takes office, say, well, I really believed in this, but now that I'm here, I've found, well, there's certain things that are beyond my control. We can't get it done. Because if you really believe a wall is going to be built between Mexico and the United States, I just think you're out there in the clouds. I just don't buy that. I don't buy that practically, I'm not saying whether it's a good idea or bad idea, I'm just saying practically, I can't see that happening.
Well, I think that's correct, but then I think most of what Trump says he's willing to take back, so why would that be different?
And people forgive him for that. That's an excellent, excellent point. All right, listen, we've got a bunch of phone calls. When we come back, the remainder of the show, we'll get running through those. We've got 2 lines open. If you want to jump in, 737-7587. Professor Schwartz will take your questions when we come back as we continue to talk about campaigns. Doesn't just have to be about Donald Trump, but that so often is the focus, and that's something he likes, and it's one reason he continues to lead the way he does. We'll take a break, be back with more, and your call, stay on there. We'll get to you right after this.